Hey there, and welcome back to Elden Ring and our narrative lore playthrough. This video is going to be a little different from my regular ones because my software did not actually record my mic, so I'm going to do a voiceover over the gameplay that I recorded in us going through beneath the capital. And why are we here? Well, we are seeking an audience with the Three Fingers, which we know are buried somewhere underground here, because Yora told us as much. Now, that being said, there are actually a few clues that you can find that would point you towards the idea that there is something madness related down here. Maybe not necessarily the Three Fingers. There are some notes and things from the traders, but nothing that really tells us directly. But we do find things that inform us that, hey, there is something else going on underneath here. And I mean, even just wandering around, we find all the Omen, which we know are sealed away because the Golden Order finds them unsightly and against their rule. And all the ones that we're fighting here have their horns because they are born of the noble families. They are not excised when they are from noble birth. So they're already hiding away some dark things that they don't like underneath the capital. With the Omen, there's actually catacombs. There was a guy, Esgar, who is a worshipper of blood, of Moog. And even then, we should find Moog and Morgott down here. Of course, we don't find Morgott. He's ruling the city. But down at the bottom of this pit right here, we actually find what should be Moog. But it's not actually him. We see his real form way in the underground and along the ancient underground rivers and the Mogwin dynasty, part of that ancient dynastic place. And so as we look around in this whole sewer system, the sewers themselves don't feel like they would be a place where you would find the Three Fingers. Instead, it has to be at that pit thing. It's very different from the rest of what we see here. So we have to look for some clues that are going to tell us that the Three Fingers are around here. Now, I do want to mention too that in the past, if you look at this pit here, right, it's broken. There should be staircases that circle and spiral all the way down to the bottom from the top. But the reality is it's broken and it's not accessible in any fashion. Either through time or sabotage, it's been sealed away. But we do actually have an elevator that takes us down where we find Moog. And so it makes me wonder, what was the purpose of this whole thing? I mean, when we get all the way down there, it goes to a place that is called a chapel or cathedral. Cathedral of the Forsaken, I believe, or Forsaken Cathedral. So it had some kind of purpose, and there's actually roots for an Erdtree burial. I mean, there's catacombs around too. So the place had significance, and it would have wanted to be accessible. Hence, the staircase that would take you all the way from the ground surface all the way down below to this cathedral area. Now, why did they remove that stuff? It's maybe they just decided they didn't have any use for it and they just needed a place to hide away the things that they didn't like, such as the omens and perhaps these maddening Three Fingers and whatever else they would find. Now, as we come up here, we actually get our first real clue that there is something madness related in here, and I struggle with the camera here for a bit. But we find our first real clue that there is something else buried beneath the capital, even though we know what it is already. And if you look too, we were just talking about its location. I mean, you can see up where this should lead us up. And when you go above, it is just a well. It's not really anything at all, and no real way to access it. It was definitely sealed up long ago. And the architecture is very different from the surface level of the Lanedale capital. And there we have the Nomad Ashes. So if we go and we take a look at them, a member of a tribe that was entombed in the earth as to bury the maddening disease that followed them, able to emit a terrible flame of frenzy from his eyes, but has low HP and is frail, unable to take much in the way of punishment. So you had a tribe, and they were buried beneath the earth, just like these maddening Three Fingers, just like the Omen, because they had some disease that would maybe spread madness. And we see a similar type of thing across different villages and towns in the lands between, in the Weeping Peninsula and Liurnia, right? An afflicted town, a frenzied flame village, a place that has a mark that's warning people away as though they have the plague. It's something that could spread. And it's a weird thing to think that this frenzy, this madness could spread. But when you think about using the spells and whatnot, you do actually see as it inflicts madness on others. And perhaps in theory, it could then spread to that person and they could be a vessel for the Flame of Frenzy as well. Now we're going to go ahead and summon the guy here so we can actually get a look at him in this tribe member who was sealed away. And the first thing we're going to notice, I mean, one, he's got a bunch of rags on, but he has an instrument across his back. He has some kind of cane or a, what do they call it, a bow, because it's for a stringed instrument. And who else uses that? And that would be those nomadic merchants who are persecuted by the Golden Order. And we know that because the first merchant we meet, he expresses surprise that we don't try and kill him, that we're not like the others, you know, and his people were basically chased off. And so this is a nomad. They are a nomadic merchant. So the nomads, or these nomadic merchants, were sealed underground. It has a lot of, I guess, parallels to gypsies, I guess you might say, for European real world connections. But yeah, so their tribe was sealed underground for a maddening disease. Now, do they actually have that? Because the merchants we find, they don't have that kind of problem. You know, they don't attack us like that or anything like that. They're reasonable. We talk to them. It's fine. But if you do attack them, they do actually use Frenzied Flame abilities. So there is a connection there. So they were afflicted by some kind of madness, but they don't seem to be ravening like that disease type of description would make it out to be, right? Now we're coming down here. These are the purified ruins, and there's a few things you can get from here. One, this is where we end up finding Hayeda when we're first starting and progressing her questline after the little overlook in Liurnia. But you can get a grapefruit piece for them, and then there's also the spirit. And so we can talk to him, and he gave us information before. It just wasn't super clear. But he doesn't look like the nomads that we just saw. He looks more as a straight commoner. Come out one and all from the darkness underground, and let us offer unto the maiden our eyes. So see, from the beginning, it's, okay, what does that even mean, right? And now we know. He was a member of their tribe that was buried under the capital. And so he's talking to his fellows to come on out. Let's offer our eyes up to the maiden so that we can get, she can seek out the light, because that's what Hayeda was doing. She was seeking the light that's in the back of her eyes. And every time she ate one of those fingerprint grapes, she would go forth and see it more clearly, and it would guide her on her way. And these ruins are probably purified because they had madness people in there. So in a way, it does seem to have kind of spread across the lands between, right? We see a place down in the Weeping Peninsula. There's two locations, you could say, up here. Even underground, there's actually plants that spew out the frenzy. And I wonder if the reason they have that is because the plants basically fed on bodies that were inflicted by the madness. Now, why is it spreading around so much? Well, I kind of get the impression that the Flame of Frenzy basically settles into people who are desperate or have no other options. And something that kind of guides me in that thought process is Shabriri's woe, who had his eyes gouged out for the crime of slander, and then in time, the blight of the Flame of Frenzy came to dwell in the empty sockets. So it's like it descended on him after he had been punished. Now we're going back beneath the capital. We've looked at our clue, and we're down way below where we end up fighting Moog, and it takes us up into this cathedral area, because this is where we find, not where we find, but on the outside of this, on the periphery of this, we find that Nomad Ash, which tells us they're leaving from below. They're climbing up that tower, which means our answer is somewhere down here. Now, to be completely honest, I don't know how you would find this normally, okay, unless you just are randomly trying things, or there's some other clue that I'm missing, right? But coming down into this room, what do we see? Just a bunch of roots. It is very much a cathedral, a church with pews. Those roots are going down for that Erdtree burial. You can see, if we ever look up, that they are masses of bodies and just clumps, just like we see in all the other sections that will basically take the souls or the people back to the Erd tree. And let's see, a nice little close-up look. Yeah, you can see the corpses and everything too. But eventually, we come around up on the chapel. What's up there? There's not really anything there. There is a chest there. I don't remember what we found in it. It's nothing amazing. The carpet is kind of interesting because when you look at it, it has that sort of line with a twisted helix design almost, kind of winding around it. Goes up sort of like we see in Rykard's palace behind his throne. Also kind of like you would see on the front of the Depraved Perfumers. But here we go. There is the secret. Behind that little chapel section is an opening. So this whole place seems to be buried on layers upon layers upon layers. We have Leyndell, which may not have even been the first place here. Underneath it, we have the capital or the catacombs and these other old structures that look very different from other portions. And then beneath that, here we have some sealed away prisoners, a sealed away tribe of, nomads. And you can see there's a body, empty eyes, clutching and listening. We hear the music. Very haunting. And I mean, you can see it. These are definitely the nomads. And look how they're just clustered. Huge mounds of bodies. All those people trapped here. We see yellow embers, which house the Flame of Frenzy. And if you go and you look at it, it's an eye that sort of ruptured from the flame. And you can see this whole section goes down and down and down with rickety board sections connecting between the two. There are parts where it does appear as though you should be able to traverse normally between all the different areas. But again, just like the section before in the large circular region, it's all dilapidated, it's ruined, just completely to waste, which is natural given time and just the overall state of the lands between. And some living nomads are here. One, we heard the music. Two, he's walking around and then he uses the Flame of Frenzy against us. But what do we find? Nomadic merchants' finery. Now, I guess they probably weren't all merchants. That'd be ridiculous, right? So it's just regular people. But the merchants were probably the ones who survived. Why? Because they're nomads. They got away. They were out and about. But this is a chapeau of a nomadic merchant decorated with tiny gems and a wide spectrum of colors. These merchants once thrived as a great caravan, but after being accused of heretical beliefs, their entire clan was rounded up and buried alive far underground. Then they chanted a curse of despair and summoned the Flame of Frenzy. So they were thriving. They were a thriving people, but much like many of the other various demographics of the lands between, if they didn't quite fit exactly what the Golden Order or America or whoever wanted, they were ostracized and cast out. The Omens, the Vulgar Militia, now we see it was the nomadic people, right? Now, they were accused of a heretical belief. And the nomadic thing, it says basically a maddening blight followed them. So is that what they were accused of? They were accused of, hey, you follow this maddening flame, you follow the three fingers, which isn't like our two fingers. And so by that accusation, they were buried alive under here. Why didn't they just kill them? I don't really know. Maybe they were afraid that if they killed them, it would somehow release the Flame of Frenzy and, let it propagate further. So to me, the whole thing kind of reads as though they were accused of this thing and they didn't actually follow it. But after they were sealed down here, then they did. They offered up these curses, and with the curses came the Flame of Frenzy. It did summon it. Now, there is also very possibly the potential that they did follow the three fingers and the Flame of Frenzy. Who can say? And see, there is a distinction between the Flame of Frenzy and the three fingers, right? So, it's not necessarily the same thing. There's just also the maddening three fingers below the capital. Very interesting outfit, though. It's got almost a rainbow-hued cloak to it. There is fine jewels across the top, like it mentioned, even on the belt. And even underneath the coat seems to be a nice, maybe delicate, but fine chain link beneath the coat to sort of protect them and whatnot. So it's pretty interesting to look at. I will note too that the other merchants, as you find them across the world, have different colors to them, right? They all have a significant color. Vare has, oh no, maybe not Vare. The merchant, the first merchant you meet, he has red. Others have black, blue, white. You know, there's a bunch of different colors depending on the specific merchant. So is there significance to it, or is it just a personal flavor and choice? Now, there is another thought, right, with the merchants that we do find, the nomadic merchants. So did they escape the burial by virtue of being traveling merchants? Because the overall tribe seems to be nomadic. So they would have had to have been rounded up anyways. So did they just happen to escape, and then that's when they were, and that's when they just continued on doing what they were doing? Or, were they buried in here and then they escaped, such as the ashes are kind of explaining? But there's a couple things with that, right? And the first hand, if they basically avoided being buried alive, it makes it a little weird on how do they have the Flame of Frenzy. Because I was more inclined to believe that they found the Flame of Frenzy after they were buried here. Much like how with Shiburi, it said after his eyes were gouged out, eventually the Flame of Frenzy came to settle within. So in a way, I read their description similar to that, where they were buried underground, and then eventually, in cursing the Erd Tree, the Golden Order, then the Flame of Frenzy showed up. However, if those nomadic merchants weren't captured with them and buried alive, how do they have the Flame of Frenzy? If that is the case, how do they have it? So it can't be both ways, right? So either they had the Flame of Frenzy before they were buried and the accusations were right, and so when the merchants weren't captured, they already had it, or the merchants and the nomads didn't have the Flame of Frenzy until they were buried, and the merchants we find escaped later, and that's how we see them around. The problem I have with that second one is the fact that their eyes and everything are fine. I mean, they have yellow for the Flame of Frenzy, but they aren't empty, hollowed out like the other guys in here. They're not completely in rags and just decrepit. Now, we got a thing. It's for a Flame of Frenzy warming stone. This one is a ruined fragment blessed by the two fingers, or an incantation of them to gradually give you health. And then the Sun wants one, and then there's the Frenzy Flame. This is blessed with the incantations of the three fingers. So you have the two fingers, then the three fingers, and it confers madness upon those who have not adopted the flame. Take care not to mistake this for its gentler cousin. So tying in from that, we have the two fingers and we have the three fingers. Now, the natural thought is you put the two of them together, you have the full five-fingered hand. So, right, that would make a lot of sense. And actually, five fingers are significant in that they are significant for the beasts, because we have the cicada dagger that mentions how it's a sign of intelligence. So, were the two and three fingers once whole together? The issue with that is all the two fingers, there's a bunch of two fingers. It's not a singular, it's numerous, right? We see them in all different locations. Bodies, Ronnie slays one. There's one in the Round Table Hold. So why are they mostly two fingers, and then why is there this one three-fingered one? Is it just simply an aberration? Is it a mutant? Was it supposed to be part of some other greater whole, and then something happened? It's really not clear to us right now. But as we traverse through this whole section, we are left with no other way to go except down, and this terrible jumping puzzle. Now, the first time I did this ever, I actually did it the very first try. And then every other time I've gone through here again, it has taken me multiple attempts to actually successfully make it through here. And this time me going through was no exception. It took me quite a few tries to actually successfully make it all the way down. But hey, with some perseverance and, grit, luck, we make it down. We get a new spell, the Inescapable Frenzy. Of course, another madness spell, naturally, given its location, right? But what does it say? Well, it causes the yellow flame of frenzy to blaze from the caster's eye. The caster then latches onto foes, spreading the madness. This incantation causes buildup of madness in the caster and is only effective against Tarnished. To gaze into one another's eyes is truly the most intimate form of human contact. So it does very much seem to imply that, yeah, the madness does spread. By eye contact, it can spread to another person. By latching onto them, it bursts forth, and the flame, I mean, almost like a real living flame, it can go out and spread into other things, right? It catches fire, it uses more kindling to go. But we make it down a side of grace, and there is Hayeda. And, of course, she made it here. This is where her light has been guiding her.
So you're here as well, are you? I realized as we've talked, I'll be a maiden, and you, surely a lord. Go to the door ahead. After divesting yourself of your possessions, it will surely open, and the three fingers will welcome you. May the flame of chaos find purchase.
There's a couple things about that. One, we need to divest ourselves of our possessions to see the three fingers, and then she's hoping that the flame of frenzy, the flame of chaos, will find purchase within us. Now, that's another line that we heard from another character. I believe Fia actually said it way back when she was talking about Godwyn and getting the mending rune of death. She was hoping it would find purchase within her. But walking up to this door, I mean, it's red, molten. It reminds me of like a living flesh almost. It does not look like stone to me, but it does have an appearance of being burned. And honestly, I wouldn't even look at that as a door, to be frank. To me, it just looks like rock. That's all it looks like. Or something else. I do want to mention too, I made a mistake here. I didn't stop at the side of grace to actually rest because I believe Melina would have something to say to us. Because originally when we first talked to Yura, or Shabriri riding Yura's body, she says, hey, this is a bad idea. Do not touch the flame of frenzy. It's not worth it. It would get rid of everything else and remove all potential. Like, it's not right for us to use. Unfortunately, I didn't do that, and I feel bad. That's why I kind of wanted to do this again to see if I could get it right, but it is what it is. And I guess I don't 100% remember if that's the case. But here we go. Divested of all our equipment, we open the door. And there it is. So three fingers sealed away behind a door. And you can see it is burning with the flame of frenzy and chaos within it. I mean, it's crackling through it. And it reaches up and takes us in an embrace where it chars our flesh. And you can see the marks there on the ground where the three fingers were actually settled. And they actually were gouging the ground as well when it was reaching forward. Just a little bit, right? Very interesting. And really the room, it's smaller than the cutscene kind of made it seem. It looked much larger. It may have just been the darkness. But it reaches out and it grabs us. And it's not quick, it's not really predatory in how it does it. It's slow, almost gentle before it flares and then burns away to nothing as the flame of frenzy transfers to us. Now, I kind of have this question where I then wonder, well, is the three fingers, was it the source of madness, or was it simply a vessel for that flame of chaos? And I'm sort of inclined to say the latter, because it doesn't stay. It burns away. Why would the source of it go away? If it the flame of frenzy seems to be a separate thing from the actual three fingers. It was just sort of a source, a vessel for it to ride. Now, we aren't the first person to come and see the three fingers either, though. Vike made it here before, who was maybe compelled by an outside force or made his own decision. He came here to seek the three fingers. Now, he kept wearing his armor when he went into that meeting, into that little conference, and it seared and melted his armor. It's all over it. Now, did he not have another maiden here to advise him against that? And maybe that's why the three fingers were still here, is he wore his armor so the flame didn't completely take hold. I mean, it just made him mad, but he didn't become a new vessel for the flame of frenzy. Then eventually we come along and we become the new carrier for the flame who can take it out into the world and do its purpose, which in some fashion seems to be burning the Erd tree down, right? Because that's what Shabriri says. He says, hey, use the flame of frenzy to burn it down. You don't need to use her for kindling. Just use this. This will do the job. So it doesn't care if the Erd tree burns down because it wants to incinerate all that divides and distinguishes. But is that its ultimate purpose? Or is it seeking something else out? Because it is very much an other, right? All the things leading up to this, it is very eldritch in nature, very king in yellow, because it's the yellow flame of frenzy, of madness, right? Eyes bursting, howling, blind people going out, touching the face, and yeah, just really mad stuff. So it leads us to the question of what is its true purpose? And are we going to be an unwilling vessel or agent of its designs? But hey, Hiedo will probably have some more.
The flame of chaos has nestled within you. Could you please rest your hand upon me? Burn me with the flame to make me your maiden.
And so, yeah, we gotta touch her to mark her and make her our maiden. Now, how is that supposed to work? How are we supposed to know what to do? Who can say, I guess maybe just instinctive, I guess. I suppose we'll find out here in a second.
Oh, it burns. My eyes, they're melting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think our character maybe instinctively knew what to do simply because it was really the flame guiding us and melted her eyes, rupturing them.
Thank you. I have touched them. The words of the three fingers. As your maiden, allow me to divine them. All that there is came from the one great. Then came fractures, and births, and souls. But the greater will made a mistake. Torment, despair, affliction, every sin, every curse, every one born of the mistake. And so, what was borrowed must be returned, melted all away with the yellow chaos flame, until all is one again.
Interesting stuff there.
Those who gave me grapes howled without words, saying they wished they were never born. Become their lord, take their torment, despair, their affliction, Every sin, every curse, then melt it all away. As the Lord of Chaos, no more fractures. No more birth.
And then the flame completely consumes her, or begins to consume her, I guess. She's starting to burn up, leaving us an item of some kind. The Frenzied Flame Seal and a Frenzy Flame Stone. So what does the Frenzy Flame Seal tell us? So if we go and we take ourselves a good little look here, a formless sacred seal bestowed by the Maiden of the Three Fingers. It enhances incantations of the Frenzied Flame. This seal is a mark of the Lord of Frenzied Flame. Scales incantations using strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith all together. Tying in with that whole, the one great, all things back together as one. But it does not include arcane, which is interesting to me. Unlike the other Dragon Communion seal, which scales off of arcane. But it is another formless seal, like the Dragon Communion, like the Erd Tree seal, like the Golden Order seal. All those are great formless ones, just signs, just belief. It's kind of clear. It's something that's maybe just a part of you now. But yeah, the one great. So it starts off, she takes the Frenzied Flame, where she can then touch their words and know what they are. Now, the other Finger Maidens, they learn the scriptures of the two fingers, but not necessarily how to listen to or read or speak the two fingers. That's why we have the finger reader crones. They interpret the motions of the two fingers, and there's even the writing that we see on the scripture of the Cipher Pada and the Cipher Sword, as well as in the sigils behind the different incantations that are for the two fingers. We see their writing, like a text that isn't decipherable by people. So similar fashion here. So the Flame of Frenzy actually touches on her so that she understands what they want, and they want, or what the Flame of Frenzy wants, or I guess the Three Fingers interprets for us, or tells us, hard to say, tells us that it all used to be the one great, and then it came fractured, birth, and souls, right? But then the Greater Will made a mistake, which leads into all the bad things of the world, sins, despair, torment, etc., right? And so it wants to give back what was borrowed. It's basically seems to be implying that we had this one great, this almost, I'd call it like a material, and from it everything else was sort of made. Now, it doesn't explicitly say that the Greater Will did it, right? But the Greater Will is a moving force behind a lot of the lanes between, specifically with the two fingers and the Elden Lord and things like that, right? And so the two fingers go out and they try and contact the Greater Will. That's what they're doing right now, and it's going to take many hundreds and thousands of moons. But did the Greater Will borrow this stuff? Did they have the one great and they took pieces of it and they used it to, I don't know, necessarily create this world, but created, made births, fractures, differences, right? And a lot of it to me sounds a lot like Evangelion. It's possible spoilers for the end, I guess. But they have the whole human instrumentality thing, which basically blends everybody back together. There's a lot to unpack in that whole series anyways. But, it's a tricky thing because it's like, oh, we can all be one and we can all be happy. But if you just have if you have one person, one consciousness, is there any self actually? Can there be a self without the other? And so by returning all this stuff back to the one, the great one, is it going to, is it actually good? Because as it is right now, yeah, there's torment and sad and bad, but there's also good. There's potential in life, right? And so by just melting it all away, removing the fractures and everything like that, we lose that potential for good and happiness, etc. Now, I do, what if the Greater Will was using the one great to make things, and then it is like a separate thing, which is kind of how I'm interpreting it. What mistake did it make? Because that's what she says there, that the Greater Will made a mistake, right? What was that mistake?
You have inherited the frenzied flame. A pity. You are no longer fit. Our journey together ends here. And remember, should you rise as the Lord of Chaos, I will kill you. As sure as night follows day, such is my duty. For allowing you the strength of runes. Goodbye, my companion. Goodbye, Torrent.
So, yeah, she basically says, you took on the frenzied flame. You're not fit to be Lord anymore. Which is interesting because, old Shabriri kind of made it seem the other way. Hey, take the frenzied... Like, if you sacrifice Melina, if you sacrifice your maiden to do this goal, this ultimate objective, are you really fit to do it? What kind of Lord would do it? And now she's basically saying, yeah, by doing it, you're not fit anymore. What are you doing, man? Like, no. And I wonder, too, there's nothing clear here that says it, but by taking on the frenzied flame, are we losing our own will in the whole matter, right? We have no more agency, which has been kind of a big thing. I talked about, agency with Melina. She had a task given to her by her mother in the Erd Tree, and she didn't understand it. She didn't know what it was, and then when she goes back and finds it, she says, yeah, okay, that's what it is. And I'm not doing it because it's what I was told to do. I'm doing it because I agree that this is the thing to do. It's what I want to do. That's her agency. And then we have our own where we can say, all right, yeah, I respect that, and I can let you do the sacrifice to reach my own goal. But if I have my own choice and options, I won't actually do that. I'm not going to sacrifice you. But in us making that choice to do that and save her, we have lost our own agency, because now we have essentially an outer god resting within us, because that is what it is. It's nestled into us. It is a formless thing that has come and seeks out and creates madness and spreads across the lanes between, because it is, frankly, it is doing that. There's even a great flaming frenzy eye thing that we see in Liurnia before we get to the one major frenzied village that has a bunch of Liurnia troops there. And, you see it in the Mount Gelmir as well. There are troops and soldiers who are basically subsumed by, or consumed by, the frenzied flame. And they have gone mad. It's spread to them, right? And Shabriri's done. He's gone. He no longer has a use for Yura. We've done the job he wanted from us. And instead we just find his armor left behind. An iron casa of the man who calls himself Shabriri, crafted to imitate the woven straw hats worn in the land of reeds. The man, once known as Yura, kept a woman in the deepest reaches of his heart. That woman would be Eleonora, because that's who he was chasing for the Bloods, the followers of Moog, right? And we fight the invader of her too. When she comes out, she's using dragon incantations and a cursed blood blade, much like our friend, I forgot his name, Okina. Much like Okina. So, similar thing there. But, yeah, Shabriri's gone. Now, it's interesting, I don't know. He came back, he's basically riding, his spirit is still there. It's a pretty fascinating thing. Alright, we're back to, this is actually live commentary now. Now I've kind of figured everything out and settled things. No camera though, because all my equipment is starting to fall apart, including my mouse. But we're back down here. It's called the Frenzied Flame Prescription, or at least that's what the Side of Grace is called. Prescription meaning to be banned or banning something. So, right, the banned Frenzied Flame. A question that we can ask and we wonder about is, when did the Three Fingers get down here? Was it before the different nomads were here? Was it after? It's pretty hard to imagine it got put way down here after the nomads were set in place. So it very much seems like that somehow the Three Fingers came about. And maybe it always was a sort of herald thing for the Frenzied Flame. And so that's why they sealed it away. But they put it in here. And maybe they sealed it away. Here's the thought, right? Much like how the nomads were sealed away, Shabriri was punished, and then the Flame of Frenzy came to be. Maybe the Three Fingers was sort of a mutant, a deformity. And so they locked it away because they said this isn't what it's supposed to be. So they got rid of it. And then trapped and sealed down here, then the Flame of Frenzy came to rest on it. Much like I was saying before, how it seeks out those who have been hurt, wounded, have nothing else to give or a handle. And so it comes in and it settles on those who are desperate, in need, right? And so it does that. And then it finds the Three Fingers. So perhaps that's kind of what happened. But I imagine it was sealed away first, right? Because it's at the very bottom. And actually the floor, when we're dropping down, it gives way. It was sealed and bricked up, the whole bottom section. And then they threw in the nomads. And maybe the nomads definitely found the maddening flame at that point. Because guess what's right underneath them? The maddening Three Fingers. Good job, Golden Order. What did you think would happen? So, and after that, then what happens? What do they bury next? What comes out on top of them? Then you have the omens, right? Those go there. And not even just them. Who else is up there in the sewers? It's a jail as well. It's not just a sewer system and place for these guys. It also has the Dung Eater. It has a bunch of the Revenant followers and whatnot. And so they're locked away in there as well. And so they just keep putting all their things, their unwanted, down below, out of sight, out of mind, where it just kind of festers and seeps back up, just to essentially to blight and cause the Golden Order problems later. Now, I was kind of dumb earlier. I got that spell, and you know what I didn't do? Was walk out here into this open space. So where you get that spell, there is actually stuff right here, and you can see there's actually a tent with another item there. And so we need somebody to bust that for us, which means there should be a shambly guy around here somewhere. Oh, he's alive. So maybe we'll just bump into him. Come on, Nomad. Okay, he doesn't want to move for some reason. Alright, we're gonna have to try and do a thing to break it. There we go. Note, Miquella's Needle. And there's another item on this side. Actually, and look at that. Maybe that was the dude I needed. Fingerprint Stone Shield. Alright. I knew I was forgetting something. But here we go. Let's look at the shield first, real quick. A great stone shield with an intricately carved fingerprint design. One of the heaviest of all great shields, part of the tomb of an ancient god. The readerless fingers relayed their message through these imprints, said to be the very seeds from which frenzy first sprouted. So, I find it interesting. It's the tomb of an ancient god, part of the tomb. So, was the tomb here, or did they take it from a different place? That is a question, right? I mean, it is here, which kind of makes me think it is like this place would have been the tomb of an ancient god, right? But then also the fact that it has readerless fingers relayed their messages through the imprints. So the fingers, right? You have the finger reader crones who would read their movements and the wavings and twirlings to see what their secret messages were. They would first do these imprints, right? And then that's where you would get the messages from. But this was the very seeds from which frenzy first sprouted. So it's possible. It's said. It's not saying they were, right? It's said. So maybe the Three Fingers really were the source of the frenzied flame. And it's just really, really old, right? It's interesting too, though, that I don't think these were left by the Three Fingers, because this is intricately carved fingerprint design. So this was carved by somebody else, probably in a sort of worship of them, perhaps by our nomad fellows here. And then, it's just reminiscent of what they used to do before. And yeah, I mean, you see it. There's the whorls of the fingerprint. Very strong shield. Super, super good. Definitely not using it. Now we have a note that we need to read, though. Note written by a nomadic merchant, succinctly detailing knowledge. Alright, so here we go. Miquella's Needle. The Empyrean Miquella crafted a needle to resist the influence of outer gods. Those who have inherited the flame of frenzy, yet wish not to become its lord, would do well to seek Miquella's needle. So we have inherited it. We don't necessarily want to become its lord, right? And so we need to seek Miquella's needle, and it resists the influence of outer gods. And we've seen that same thing before with the unalloyed golden needle that we give to Millicent. We find it in the Aeonian swamp, presumably where Millennia and Radon did battle. And then when she basically bloomed, a scarlet rot bloomed, then that needle broke, which means she was influenced by the outer gods, hence why the whole place became rotted over. So we knew it could quell that kind of influence because the dude fixes a gallery, and we give it to Millicent, and what stops afflicting her? The scarlet rot. So yeah, I mean, it absolutely works to do that. How would you know that there is a illusory wall here? No idea. Again, just by randomly walking about, you never know when you're going to find one, right? But there's a chest. Very cool, right? Wonder what could be in it. A rune arc. Excellent. That feels kind of cheesy. Ha-ha! And what do we find down below? It's another side of grace. It's the... I actually hardly ever go right here and get this, so it's kind of interesting to me to get it. The root-facing cliffs. So here we are, way down below the capital. So again, it's things stacked on top of each other, which I always really like. We have this nameless eternal city right here, right? The nameless eternal city, a portion of the base of the Erd tree, right? And then on top of that, ancient catacombs, possibly part of a tomb for some old dead god. And then Lanedale catacombs, omens, and then the capital itself with the Erd tree now towering over everything. So it's just things stacked on top of things, stacked on top of things, and another item for us to get, and then we will probably call it good there. Now, if we want Miquella's needle, we have to figure out where that would be. Smithing stone, very nice. Because where is it? Where would it be? Well, who did he give it to? Well, we found an unalloyed one. We found a broken one, but it's now with Millicent. Where's Millicent going? Well, Millicent is going to the frigid north, and she's trying to take a secret path to the Halec tree, which we now have the pieces for. So that is probably where we can go and find things. And it's just kind of where the road is leading us, And maybe in theory, we would find Millennia, because who else would have it, right? It would have to be Millennia. Nobody else would have that type of thing. That's where the previous one was. And I don't really think that old Miquella was just making them for any old person, right? Yeah, there really wasn't much for items. I mean, some runes and other things. It's just interesting. It's another avenue for you to get down here in case you didn't take one of the other multiple avenues. There's 3 different ways to get down here to these root depths, which is really fascinating to me. I mean, these roots themselves look, right, it's just a tree. That's already just a tree trunk right there. And there's, a portion of, I'm assuming, the base of the Erd tree, because that's kind of where it lines up. Because when you go to the Erd tree sanctuary and everything, it is right there. That's where we're going to call it now. So our next step is going to be to seek out the secret path of the Halec tree. We're going to go from there and see if we can't find some mystical Miquella's needle, and basically find a way of not being locked into taking on the mantle of Lord of Frenzied Flame. We're just trying to use it for ourselves. We just want to use it to burn up the Erd tree, and that is it. We're not really looking to, melt everything away, because that is what they want to do, right? That they want to melt all the things down and return it to the one. All oneness, nothing else. And it's just not, it's just not great. It's so final. There are some other interesting parallels to draw between what it wants us to do and another character that will, when we get there, we'll try and connect them. But thank you guys for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and until the next one, take it easy.